are recording, and I am so excited to be here today for the Wild Women Wednesday. And we're going to focus on mindset and focus for the new year. So I've got a little bit of information I want to share. I do want you to feel comfortable during the presentation. If you want to pop anything in the chat, you want to share any little aha moments as we go through, you can also open your audio if you don't mind that being on the recording from today. So I was just talking before I hit the record button as to who I am. I am Jen Montag, and one thing I took off this screen is I always feel like one of the most important things that I talk about typically is that I have the label of awesome aunt, self-assigned, of course. And what that simply means is that when we think about what is really important, I'm hoping that relationships is a big part of what you think is really important. And that is a relationship I cherish in my own life. I didn't have my own children, but I am certainly an awesome aunt. So important element that's not on this slide. So this is my mantra that I came up with. Well, it's a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, woman I admire, that kind of trailblazed when women were not really having a voice. And one of the things that I love about this quote, it spoke to me so much. 5 years ago, literally around this time, 5 years ago, I made a decision. And that decision was that everything I wanted to do there forward was to focus on what does a life well lived look like to me? Because we all want to be happy. I mean, raise your hand if you want to be happy. We all want to be happy, right? But it's not a goal in and of itself. It is truly a byproduct of what we do in our life. And so when I began my own little personal quest 5 years ago, this is the quote that became my mantra. And it was a reminder to focus on what a life well lived looked like and felt like to me, not something that was dictated by another. And I believe living every day intentionally is the secret to how we achieve a life well lived. And so that whole not being dictated by another, I was in corporate, I was in financial services industry, I was in a very male dominated industry. So guess what? There were a lot of men in black and blue suits that surrounded me, especially as I climbed the corporate ladder. And their definition of success and what a well-lived life looked like, I was trying to conform to their definition versus making it for myself. So it took me a little bit longer than others, probably, because it took me to 45 to figure out what that is. But I do want to challenge you all today. Figure out what that definition looks like for yourself, especially as we're heading into a new year after a pretty rough year that we've had in 2020. So what does a well-lived life look like? But it all begins with our mindset, right? And so mindset has several elements: beliefs, thoughts, feelings that turn into behavior, action, and attitude, which in the end are actually the results. So if you think about it from that standpoint, that if we do begin with the beliefs, and we're going to go through each one of these because I feel like it's very important just to kind of break that down as to what that means to us and our mindset. So we all want to feel happy. We all want to make sure that we do have that life well lived, but our mindset is the key element of whether or not we're going to achieve that. So let's get our mindset straight for just right now. And as we're thinking about going into the new year, and I have a little chat, and I don't know for sure if it's, oh yeah, thank you, Leigh, for doing that, sending the little handout yet again. I don't know for sure if others have joined since we've started the presentation. So let's go into what are beliefs. That is my next piece that I want to talk about. So what are beliefs? Beliefs, these are what you have accepted as the truth. So I'm going to let that resonate for just a little bit here. Beliefs, your beliefs are what you have accepted as the truth. Now, note, I didn't say that those beliefs are based on fact, because many times our beliefs aren't based on fact at all. What are they based on? They're based on probably some things that maybe you've been told. And where do our beliefs typically come from? They come from our experiences, from our background, and many are related to powerful figures from our youth. So like parents, teachers, and close friends, peers, or other adults that may have been very forceful with their opinions, if you want to say it that way. And a belief that I had when I was younger was that, and it still occasionally gets me, is that my second grade teacher had a very specific opinion of my intelligence, which she didn't hesitate to share in front of a classroom. And, back in that era, I am a product of 1970. I am now 50. So when you think about from that era, there was a lot of stigma, and there still is stigma attached to any child who has any kind of learning disability. I had a reading comprehension problem. So I had a second grade teacher that would call me stupid and shake me and do all kinds of obscenely horrible things. So what did that do to my belief system? It made me question my intelligence, right? So from the very beginning, now, have I overcome that? Absolutely. I got my MBA almost with a 4.0. So yes, I've overcome that, but there has been this lifelong process of overcoming that belief that was instilled. So do you have a similar experience? Something that you once felt maybe was the truth, but in fact, it was just someone else's opinion of you. And it really has no factual basis on what is reality. So I want to know the answer to this question, and you can answer it in the chat. You can answer it for yourself on the handout. What's the belief that you need to let go? So this is the belief that maybe is keeping you from where you need to be in 2021. Maybe it's kept you a little stuck in 2020, but what's that belief you need to let go? So think on that, write that question down. You can go back, even journal on that if you want to. So then let's move on to thoughts and self-talk. So this is the next element of changing our mindset, is going to definitely be related to our thoughts and more specifically to our self-talk. So do you have a voice of that person that instilled a belief in your head? Like, I every once in a while can still hear Miss Stewart giving me that crap about how stupid I was, right? And you may have that problem still as well with you. Now, do you say to yourself what they have said? Whatever you're working towards, I want you to consider this. Do you think it's a valuable use of your time? Do you tell yourself it's important? Do you think you deserve it? What would your peer or friend or fellow wild women tell you about maybe something you're telling yourself that's not truthful? That thought that continues to come up, right? So most of us wouldn't say to a friend what we would say to ourselves. And I have a friend who says, don't talk to my friend like that, whenever she hears you say something negative about yourself. And some of you maybe have caught my brown bag break from last month, 2 months ago. I had Luann Clark, who wrote the book A Decided Difference, on with me. And she says, there's some really bad words. And she talks about should've, could've, would've, right? We do a lot of always and nevers in our brains. And those are the bad words that we got to get rid of. Because if we always say, oh, I always do that, I always mess up, or technology's never my friend, or something like that, guess what we're doing? We're just instilling that. And our brains do not hear those negative words. They don't hear the words don't. If you start a sentence with don't do this, right? Don't do something. Your brain doesn't hear the word don't. It only hears the do what you don't want it to do. So some really important things we need to change about our self-talk. So this is what I want you to think about from thoughts and self-talk. What do you need to change about your internal language? Do you need to get some of those woulda, coulda, shoulda's out of your language? Do you need to remove the word never or always, as I've shared before, that my friend shared? And I saw that there was a little chat, so I'm going to just pop in and see what that is. Yes, Nina, I love that you said also the word need. I need to do this. Yeah, it's not helpful to say I need to do this. It's not moving you anywhere. It might bring up feelings of potential guilt or something like that as well. And so we don't want to fill our thoughts with that. So we've gone from our beliefs to our thoughts and our self-talk. So what's next? Well, it's our feelings. And boy, do we know when we're feeling blue, right? We definitely know when we're feeling blue. We know when we're feeling excited, but we don't maybe always connect how that feeling came about. So our beliefs drive our thoughts, and our thoughts drive our feelings. So do you feel, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Do you feel selfish or guilty if you focus on what you really want? Do you feel you're worth it? Do you feel you must do something incredible to earn whatever you receive? And so tell me how you want to feel about what you desire to accomplish in 2021. Do you want to feel good about what your goals are? Do you want to feel like you're capable of doing that? I bet you all do, right? You want to have that confidence, you want to have that positive outlook on what you can accomplish, and you want to feel good about that. Especially, I mean, we've had a rough year, and Nina, you've used the word pain as like what a lot of the things are that we feel from based on this year. So what are some of the things that we need to focus on in regards to feelings? The first thing I want you to do is think about how you will tune into your feelings. So how do we do that? How do we listen to ourselves and tune in to how we're feeling? So those of you who are in my IGC VIP, you know I always start almost every session with this. And this is checking in on our feelings. So like, how do we feel in this moment? So you've got this list in your handout, you've got it on the screen. Think about this right now. How are you feeling in this moment? What's that word that you can attach to the feeling that you're feeling right now? You know, that we all have feelings that are different all throughout the day. So this is like, again, that social and emotional intelligence piece I was talking about earlier. That emotional piece, that emotional self-awareness element is you being able to put a name on the feeling you're feeling in that moment and then use that information. So if you were to say, okay, this is how I'm feeling, now what do you then do with that information? And I think naming the feeling helps us at least pause and assess. So think about that. And I am going to move on because I know that this is supposed to be a short and brief demonstration of just something to take away from today's element. But I do want you to think about this. If you can come up with the feeling that you feel in this moment, it will at least help you pause. And then I want you to think about, okay, what got me here? Was it something I'm thinking? Was it an experience I had? Was it something related to a belief that I have? Is that why I'm feeling the way I am right at this moment? So what do we want? Why do we want a new mindset? We want to change our mindset because we probably want new results. And a new mindset can produce new results if you work on all those things, that beliefs, which turn into the thoughts and the self-talk, which turn into the feelings that we're having, which then ultimately end in that last bit, which is results. So, and it all begins by working on our beliefs, our thoughts, and our feelings. And this is where my little lovely intentional growth tree comes into play. We can work on all of that, but we still need to have some really strong foundation as we're going into the new year. And what that foundation consists of is two things. And I believe that this is what helps us live a well-lived life. When we are solid and we have a foundation in values and our purpose. And if we're not clear on either of those things, our trunk isn't solid. So if you could just picture this tree, right? The root system, that's our values. That's what digs deep, and that's what keeps us stable, because we do need that stability. And we need that kind of tuning fork, if you will, to get us back to where we need to be. So we're going to look at values here in just a few moments. And what you can see on the tree is that if we can find the stability of the values and our purpose, then that gives us that opportunity to grow in all these other elements of our lives. our relationships, our health, our passions, our profession, our wealth, whether that is wealth as in the dollars or just wealth in the way of wisdom, and also our spiritual lives. So all of those come as a result because we have true clarity around those foundational elements of values and purpose. So what I would like to challenge you with right now is pull out that value sheet that I have given to you in the handout, or you can use what's on the screen. And I would like for you to first just go through it and check off the 10 that you think are the most aligned with what is most important to you. And then I want you to whittle those things down to at least 5. And this is hard. Now, Brene Brown says you should get down to at least 2. And these are the leadership values offered by the John Maxwell Company. And I actually have a giveaway today. And so somebody on the call today is going to get a deck of these leadership value cards. If I was in person and we weren't in COVID land, I'd be passing around cards and letting you think about it, because sometimes it lets you grid it off and get really clear on what you prefer over just a few. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm actually going to pause the recording here for just a second so that we can spend a few minutes figuring out our values. So I love the values that some of you shared. So just going to read off a few of them. I saw courage and loyalty, balance and passion, accountability and growth, integrity and growth, family and competence, family and independence. Very powerful words. And the word in and of itself is the power that it gives you. And it kind of is that stabilizing factor, so that if you go back to your values, someone else said honesty and independence. This is important for you to remember, that this word you're picking, these values you're picking, they are what is going to center you. So when the wind is blowing, and I'm going to go back to my tree picture. So when the wind is blowing, right? And that tree is moving around, and we have been in somewhat of a tornado, a constant hurricane, tornado, whatever you want to call it, in 2020. And it's going to continue a little bit into 2021. So how do we stay stable? How do we stay focused? How do we make sure our mindset comes back to our foundation? And that's to get really clear on our values. Now, our purpose is another whole exercise in and of itself, but it is something you might want to consider. What is your purpose? And maybe you have a calling that you've been resisting. Maybe 2021 is the year that you answer that calling and you really lean into your purpose. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from Jen Sincero. And if you're not familiar with Jen Sincero, she is the author of the You Are a Badass books. And I was gifted a calendar, so I've had a little bit of badassery every day this year as a result of that. But I love some of the things she says. And this quote is so true. You have to want your dream more than you want your drama. So those beliefs we were talking about, that's a big part of our drama that we need to somehow rid ourselves of, or at least work on, so then that way we can get closer to our dream. Some of the self-talk, some of the things that we choose to make priorities, or the guilt that we can't focus on ourselves, that could be some of our drama, right? So we want to make sure that we focus on our dream. And how do we do that? We first start with ourselves and in here, in our minds. And when we do that, then we will be able to get ourselves heading in the direction we need to be headed in 2021. So I'm going to just say this. Thank you so much for letting me bring your personal development or thought process or food for thought, or however you want to call that, to this session today. I do very much appreciate it. And with that, I am going to end the recording and going to open up everybody's mics, hopefully, and we're going to have a good conversation.